Hi, there has been an important development in terms of India-US military ties, especially the military technology ties. Are they actually going anywhere forward, or is India just a buyer of US equipment? So far, in the past 20 years, since India and US developed ties post the Cold War, India has purchased billions of dollars worth of equipment, including surveillance planes like the Boeing P-8I, the specialized planes like the C-130J, and also the C-17 Globemaster. It has also purchased helicopters of the Apache, the Chinook, and also the naval helicopters, the MH-60R. It is also in the race or has okayed the purchase of 31 specialized MQ-9B drones, which are publicly known as the Predator drones. These are armed drones. Now, this goes one part of the story. The other part of the story is two public policy statements from the US in the past 3 weeks. The latest one being last week when the US okayed the defense authorization called the National Defense Authorization Act. It relates to the US defense spending. Now, in the statement of the budget, US made a statement about having better ties with India and also India's role in the Indo-Pacific. This came just 2 weeks prior to this was the National Security Strategy released by the White House. It again mentioned on the same lines how India was important and how the US calculus in the South China Sea needed India and Japan. Now, these policy statements are very good. How does it impact India? India, as I told you at the start of the program, has been a buyer of US equipment. Now, India wants to graduate to become a technology partner. To put it in simple words, it wants to co-produce, co-design, and co-manufacture certain of the US high technology items. So far, that has not happened in any case in the past 20 years. Yes, the Boeing and the Lockheed, which make some of the planes, have set up some kind of a local arrangement, which includes some parts made here in India in the global supply chains. The Lockheed Martin has a facility with Tata. The Boeing also has a facility. They both make parts for the global supply chains. That is given. However, India is now looking to make an engine called the GE General Electric F414 engine, on which India's fighter jet, the Tejas Mark II, is to be powered by. Now comes the critical point. The Tejas Mark II has been designed keeping in mind the GE 414 engine. In June 2023, US President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Narendra Modi met in the US, and the US promised a technology transfer for the said engine. That is the F414 engine. Now, the same engine goes in the Boeing's F-18 plane, which is much known, much seen across the world, since the plane also flies from the ship decks of the US Navy. Coming back to the engine, India and the US have to do a TOT. The US has promised a major transfer of technology to be done in India. Now, India has to produce almost 800 engines. These engines or this TOT may define India and US strategic path in the future. Now comes another critical point. That is the supply of contracted equipment. In the past, all US equipment came on time as per the delivery schedule. Now things have changed post-COVID. At least three critical equipment did not come on time. They were delayed by several months. Critically, the first equipment I will mention is the F404 engine. I correct myself, the F404 engine, again made by General Electric. This engine is to power the Tejas Mark 1A plane to be made by the IAF. Now, the plane is being made by the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, a public sector company. The second part of this is the plane deliveries were to start in March 2024. The engines were to come prior to that. That has not happened. So far, only 5 engines have come from the General Electric to the HAL. Tejas planes are ready. Almost more than a dozen planes are ready. The engine is not there. The second part is the MH-60R helicopters. The Navy contracted them in 2020, and 24 of the helicopters should have come in by 2024. Again, a delay is there. So far, the 18 helicopters have come, 6 are yet to come in. The third delay is about the Indian Army's Apache attack helicopters. The Air Force flies 22 of the Apache helicopters. The Army was looking at 6 more and contracted 6 more in 2020. Again, COVID hit, supply chains given. The helicopters should have come in much earlier, came in with a delay of around 15 months. The helicopters have now been delivered in December. Now, the critical point in this is, it is now for the US to decide what kind of relationship it want. Will India continue to be both the countries continue to have a buyer-seller relationship, or will it progress to be actual partnership of co-development and co-manufacturing of equipment? Will that ever happen? That is a critical point. The signal has to come from Washington, D.C., not from India, because the technology is with US. India can only be a partner in that. It will decide the future of Indo-US ties. The policy statements which I mentioned in the report notwithstanding. With me is Tribune's videographer, Mukesh Agarwal.